You're listening to the Grind Line Podcast.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grind Line Podcast. I am your host, Greg. You're listening to episode 331. I am here tonight with Ryan and Tyler, and there is rumblings. We'll call it rumblings. The draft is coming up. There are rumblings.
Well, there's no more hockey. Tonight? We can say that much.
Yeah. How are you guys?
Things are definitely percolating 100%.
What? There wasn't.
Nice vocab, Tyler.
I said things are definitely percolating behind the scenes. I can definitely imagine that this week is going to be pretty damn busy in the hockey universe. I know we had something happen today, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But there's going to be more movement as we go on here this week. I can pretty much guarantee that.
So is it going to be movement because of the drafts at the end of the week?
I would say
that's so. Where you're talking about?
Yeah,
or do you think that some more big stuff's going to go down trade-wise? Because there's been trades.
No, I think there will be some trades between now and the draft and probably even during the draft.
Well, any team that wants to give up draft picks this season is going to have to trade them pretty quickly here.
Yeah, well, there's that too. But I'm saying,
a perfect insider, Tyler.
Ryan, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm tired. Wife's about to go to town for 3 days. I'm going to be even more tired and probably grumpy.
Yeah, for those of you who do not live in Michigan, it's like 100 degrees outside with like 80% humidity, and it is awful. It is absolutely awful here. Outside. But we do have some rumors floating around the NHL, and that's where we're going to start tonight. According to the fourth period, which is Dave Pagnotta, the Detroit Red Wings are currently linked to the following players in the trade market. One is gone in Trevor Zegras. The other two are Elias Pettersson and Nick Hague. Interesting. Not who I thought we would be linked to, but there's some guys that there was some Noah Dobson stuff floating around earlier with fake trade returns, but real interest in Dobson. Real interest, fake returns. But he's listed as a bubble player, which means they could trade him. They might not. He's not like 100% on the market. But the one that did happen is Trevor Zegras. Trevor Zegras was traded from the Anaheim Ducks to the Philadelphia Flyers for forward Ryan Poehling, a 2025 second round pick, which was, I think, the Rangers pick. It was a pretty high one, and a 2026 fourth round pick. And it's okay. I mean, it's a pretty even trade to me. Ryan Poehling is he's a center. He puts up low points, but he's decent defensively. He's not terrible. People were saying, oh, he's just a garbage throw in that they threw in the pile. And I don't think he really is. I think he's a serviceable center. I think probably play 3C behind McTavish and Carlson, and they get a high second round pick, and they get a fourth round pick out of it next year. And all Philly gets back is Zegras, who will probably play 3C unless they move him to wing, because Ryan says he's got some pretty abysmal face-off stats.
I don't see him playing center, but that's just my unprofessional opinion. There's no way. I mean, maybe you hope that he can, but since the freaking dawn of him entering the league, he's never been over 44% face-off win. That's really bad as a guy that's listed as a center. Like, that's Tim Stützle territory. And that's not to fully insult Stützle in a way that it actually is, because you can actually use him as a serviceable center. Zegras, you really can't on the off. Like, if you're hoping he's going in there to win you an offensive zone draw, you might as well just go tie your shoes in the corner and then look up and say, oh, what happened?
And if you look across his career, his first season, his first full season, 75 games, played 23 goals, 38 assists. The following 81 and had 23 and 42 for 65 points. This we go. That's actually a dip from his previous season in points.
Not much, but still.
Yep. And then you look at 2023-24, marred by injury, 31 games played, 15 points. And then last season, more injury, 57 games played, 32 points. And that's a far cry from cover of NHL, EA Sports NHL to traded for...
Thumbs up NHL quite nicely, actually.
Yeah, and he's traded for a probably third middle of the pack center and a couple picks. And they hope he can rebound. That's what the hope is that Zegras can go back to his form where he's scoring goals. They want him to go back to that 61 and 75 player. That's what they want him to go back to. And they hope he can. And I don't know if it was the pressure in Anaheim to try to be the top guy, whether it was trying to be forced into, like we said, a center role where he doesn't really fit. and can't just open up and has to be defensive. He's not a huge guy. He is, 6 foot, 185 pounds. He's not tough. He's actually decently soft. And I'm not sure where they try and put him in unless they want to try and turn him into a skilled winger.
And that's where they should do, in my opinion. Now, I'll just say one thing about what you said about Philadelphia compared to Anaheim. If he thought Anaheim was a tough place to play, he's going to Philly, which is even tougher, arguably. You've seen what the Flyers fans have done. I know they're not a contending team right now, but it doesn't matter. The Flyers fans are just as passionate as they were previously. And if he's soft and doesn't play well, the alarm bells are going to ring pretty quickly in Philly. You know, they booed Santa Claus, as we all know. But in terms of fit with the Flyers, I would say he's more of a winger than he is a center. Unless they really think he's going to work on it all summer long and see if he can do it, I would say that he's probably a winger, and they still need their 1 seed. They need a lot in Philadelphia. Let's be honest here. Now, I just want to quickly just correct myself. So it is Leo Carlsson as their 1C in Anaheim. Then it's Mason McTavish. Then it's Ryan Strome, and then it's Ryan Poehling. So that's according to Daily Faceoff.
I see what they're trying to do, but I don't think it's as big of an impact move as people make it. And the first complaint that went out online was Yzerman could have done that. Why is Yzerman not making deals like that? Why is Yzerman asleep? Why couldn't we have just thrown out a player? Why couldn't we have given them a pick and the rights to Berggren and made that trade? That's not the same thing. It looked like they wanted a center back. And if you were going to send them a center back, they're not taking JT Compher. They're probably going to ask you for Marco Kasper. They would have probably asked you for Kasper in a fourth or Kasper in a third.
Carter.
That's something a way like overpay. Way overpay.
Exactly. Or they would have asked you for probably the same picks and a Michael Rasmussen. But by giving that up, you're making your team smaller. You're making your team easier to play against. And you're still hoping that Zegras turns it around. We saw what happened. For as much as people hate on Michael Rasmussen, we saw what happens when Michael Rasmussen is out of the lineup for an extended period of time. It's almost the same effect as when Andrew Kopp is out of the lineup for an extended period of time. You lose a lot of defense. You lose size and you lose defensive play. You also lose Michael Rasmussen just standing over people yelling at them that make great photo ops. But if you were to trade Rasmussen for the hope that Zegras turns it around, you're doing the opposite of what those people, the same people, are screaming about. And we need bigger, we need more grit, we need more toughness. You're removing that from the team just to try to make a trade that you're not sure 100% fixes your problems. So, like I was saying before I hit record, we're in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with the fan base, where when we're not making trades, people are like, why isn't Yzerman making trades? And then when he goes and makes a trade, they're like, this was a shit trade. Why would we ever do that?
I think that the biggest thing with this deal, and I'm kind of one that's in the belief that Yzerman needs to make a move, but just because he needs to make a move doesn't mean he needs to make this move specifically.
Exactly.
I think that this move, would I have been pissed if they made it for Kasper? Yes, I would have been pissed, and I think we all would have been kind of pissed. However, it didn't look like they were looking for that kind of player. It looked like they were looking for a Michael Rasmussen kind of return, which I guess we could have lived with. But yeah, them not making that move didn't make me say anything. I really didn't think anything of it, frankly. I think the one that kind of made me think something was the Mason Marchment deal, where he was dealt from Dallas to Seattle. And honestly, I think there's still a chance that Mason Marchment is moved and doesn't ever play a game with the Seattle Kraken, because they're kind of at the beginning of a rebuild, I feel like. So I don't know. I mean, I think people are just antsy for Yzerman to make a move. I think he knows he needs to make a move. It just needs to be the right move.
Yeah, the way I put it earlier is you weigh whether what you get makes you better than what you're giving up in the long run. And I think the trade, even looking at it, and even if it was Rasmussen in a couple, like a second round pick and a fourth, what you're giving up, I don't think makes you better in the long run, because you're betting on hope at that point. Ryan, what were you going to say?
With where Zegras went, it makes sense for him going to Philly. they're already an aggressive style team. They play rough. They add some skill. He's going to be protected there more so than what you have with Anaheim, who they don't really have an identity. They've made some moves. Yeah, they've got some solid veterans in there now. But at the same time, they have a lot of expiring deals. They put a lot of money into Troy Terry going in through the 2030 season. Outside of that, their next longest tenured player on the roster right now is Frank Vetrano, who signed through the 27-28 year. So this is a team that's trying to figure out what they've got going on. Philly's kind of already on that path. They got a new coaching and management going on. They got rid of Tortorella. They've brought in a new coaching staff. They've now brought in a skilled player. They've got some young talent, arguably better than Anaheim, but they still finished dead last in the division. So there's potential there. You put Zegras in a position where he's going to be, you mentioned how hard they are on players, but they're going to love him out the gate. And that's where you can try to thrive and hope as the management team that this guy is going to kick it in and kick it up a notch, because he's going to be going in all eyes on him, but in a good way, much like he did when he came into Anaheim, because he had all the attention coming into the NHL and he brought that upon himself. He still has it. And now he's going to have a lot to prove under the new regime and under the new fan base. But I think in a way that could play to his favor when he's still not necessarily the main guy, because you've got some studded players that he's going to be falling in there with at Philly. I mean, you still have Travis Konechny. You still got Sean Couturier. Now he's added to the mix. Outside of that, you got Matvei Michkov. Like, he came in, hit the ground running, and he is already getting loved by the team. Travis Sanheim. There's big name players there. Are they top of the mark, like thoroughbreds in hockey? No, not necessarily. But he can go in, fit a role, and go off it, where he was essentially in Anaheim the guy that they were trying to put front and center and go out there and go do things.
He was the TikTok kid.
He got passed up pretty quickly. Now, the one thing I will just argue, and like I've heard people say this online, I think the Anaheim Ducks are miles ahead of where the Philadelphia Flyers are. Like, I don't see the Flyers having any young talent like Gauthier or Leo Carlson or Mason McTavish, or on the back end like Jackson Lacombe or Olin Zellweger or Pavel Mintyukov. Like, I think, and then Dostal in net. Like, I think the Anaheim Ducks are one of those teams that could go from being a team that wasn't very good this year to being a playoff team. Now, it'll depend on what happens this offseason, but I think Anaheim is pretty far ahead. Now, I guess the proof will be in the pudding when it comes to the Flyers. If Rick Tocchet, will be able to get the most out of that team like Torts was able to the last couple of years. Because, I mean, if you think about it, the Flyers, a lot of people had as a lottery team the last 2 years, and they really overachieved the last 2 years. I don't know if that's going to be the case this coming year, or if they're going to make it all the way and become a playoff team. I guess is the time will tell.
But back to what Tyler said, we do need to do something. Like, there's no doubt that I think that Yzerman needs to make a move, but Yzerman needs to make, I think, more of an impactful move than what this would have been. Whether it's the rumors that have been floating around that they might ship out Jason Robertson out of Dallas, that's the kind of impactful move you need to make. You need to go out and get a big name player that can fill a top 6 role, or you need to go out and get a solid. Now, right now, we're just talking about trades because free agency opens on July 1st. But that's another place where you can make a move without having to expend assets, except for maybe overpaying them in money terms. So we're going to take a quick break. Before we go to break, I want to say, if you're not watching us on YouTube, we would love it if you could go subscribe to us over there at Grindline Pod on YouTube. Turn on the notifications. You get notified when an episode goes live. And you can also comment and join us, and I reply to comments, and you can talk to us there. So we're going to take a quick break. Word from our sponsors. We'll be right back to talk about the couple other names that have been rumored for the Red Wings. During our quick break, I just want to tell everyone about something that's totally changed my mornings. Strong Coffee Company. If you're like me, you love your coffee, but you also want it to actually do something for you. This is the upgrade you've been looking for. Strong Coffee isn't your average cup of joe. It's an all-in-one instant blend made for people who care about their health and performance. You're getting 15 grams of grass-fed protein, 5 grams of MCTs for long-lasting energy, and adaptogens like ashwagandha and L-theanine to help you stay calm, focused, and productive without the jitters or crash. The black blend is bold and smooth, made from organic fair trade Arabica beans, and their lattes, they've got collagen, hyaluronic acid, healthy fats, the works. It tastes amazing and helps you feel sharper, sleep better, and just show up as your best self every day. And on top of all that, they're eco-friendly too, so you can feel good about what you're putting in your body and how it's made. Check them out at strongcoffeecompany.com and use our code GRINDLINE, that's strongcoffeecompany.com, promo code GRINDLINE at checkout for 20% off. That's GRINDLINE for 20% off your order. Give it a shot. I think you're going to love it. The NBA 82 game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. And we're back. And do we want to talk exciting player or not exciting player first?
Not
so exciting.
Oh, Ryan and Tyler have to fight now. Ryan spoke first. So we're going to talk not exciting first, and we'll end with exciting. Red Wings are also rumored around Nicholas Hague. Nicholas Hague is a 26-year-old left shot defenseman currently playing for the Vegas Golden Knights. He is 6'6", 245 pounds. In 68 games played last season, he had 5 goals and 7 assists for 12 points. This almost does nothing for me. Ryan pulled up the microstats card. He has an EV offense of 23, an EV defense of 15. If you look at his evolving hockey chart, he has an overall score of 9 with a 16 offense and a 10 defense. Bad on both accounts and even strength. I'm not sure this really helps your second pair all that much. He draws more penalties than he takes. He has a good finishing number around the net. Decent hits, but I mean, overall, I feel like would really be a nothing move unless we give up just garbage for him and we plan on playing him on the third pair.
See, I'd be okay with that if we're gonna play him on the third pair, and I mean, he's an RFA, so you're gonna have to give him a contract. What was he making last year? But the biggest thing is if you're bringing him in, he is still only 26 years old. I mean, obviously a big body, not afraid to lay the body a little bit. And to answer the question, he was making 2.294. So you would think he's going to get a raise to at least 3, right? Maybe 3.5 with the cap going up.
The way things are trending, you're probably looking between 3 and 4.
Are you going to pay a guy like Nicholas Hague to be your third, your 6th or sometimes 7th defenseman? I don't know. I probably wouldn't do that. In fact, no, I wouldn't do that. The more that I think about it, I guess it depends on what you're giving up, and it depends on what the contract is, but you could say that for pretty much anything.
You got to cut some fat or trim some fat, if you will. If you're going to bring in a guy like Hague, really any defenseman at this point, you have to make a corresponding move, whether it's trading somebody away or you have the buyout window open for another week. Which one of those things have to happen up and leading in the free agency?
Well, if you look at it too, if you've got Hague and you want to play him as your 3LD, which is the place you really wish to play Ben Sherratt next season, and you wish to move Edvinsson up, you wish to get a guy like Gavrikov, getting someone like Hague doesn't really help when, like you said, we still have a Justin Holl on the roster. We still have an Eric Gustafsson on the roster who are taking up those spots. So you would have to get rid of one of those guys, like Tyler said. Buyout window's open. You could buy out Holl, or you could just waive Holl and send him to Grand Rapids. You did that last season. Or you'd have to trade someone like Gustafsson, because I think you still need to move Ben Sherratt to that third spot where he's probably going to thrive. But Hague doesn't slot up into your second pair. Like his time went down. If you look at the average, his ATOI from 2023 to 2024 to 24-25, last season he had 18 minutes and 33 seconds of average time. Last season, 1660. So his ice time dropped. His deployment dropped. He had, which this is the other stat that boggles my mind.
1660. I just now noticed that. So he played 17 minutes a night.
Just around like a hair shy, right, Ryan? It was milliseconds. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
But in 73 games played last season, he had 23 giveaways. In 68 games played this season, had 56. Doubled his giveaways in
didn't
less
they
games.
adjust how they were tracking those and become more like hardcore on actually applying it?
If they did, then
giveaways and takeaways.
Well,
Yeah.
he only improved his takeaways by 5. He improved his takeaways by 5, but doubled his giveaways.
I don't know. Either way, it's he's a fringe second, definitely third pair guy based on where he's at now. He's big, very big. Like he fits the mold of a lot of the guys you're seeing Detroit go after right now. He had 6'6", but he can eat minutes for you. He's not going to give you offense. I mean, you're getting anywhere between 10 and 17 points based on his career to this point. He averages on a 20-game season 19 points a year. So is it worth a lot? No. You can probably get him for a cheap pick because he's an RFA. Vegas doesn't necessarily hold much leverage other than trying to get what they can and see if someone will bite. But unless you're, I mean, I think Hall being the odd man out and getting waived again is the likely scenario.
Or getting bought out.
I'm sorry.
Or getting bought out.
I'm not convinced he's buying anybody out at this point. And with the way things are in the contracts, I don't know. Until it happens, I'm really not convinced he does it.
Even if he does, Tyler, it doesn't really help a ton.
It does, though. It frees up an open spot because, I mean, you have 3 spots. You have 3 old defensemen. And I hate to say 34 is old, but hockey-wise it is. Eric Gustafsson had probably the most mobile, most puck-moving one of the whole group. So I'd probably keep him and then waive Hall and buy out Sherratt, believe it or not. I know Sherratt had his ups and downs the last couple of years.
Mostly downs.
Mostly downs. The year before, he was pretty good, but last year was not very good for long stretches of times. And, I mean, he's making the most. So what would it do if you were to buy him out? I mean, he's only got 1 more year.
I was going to say, with Sherratt, what would it do? You're saving $2.8 million this year, and you're losing out on 1.4 next year.
Okay, but wouldn't you think that a third pairing of Sherratt and Gustafsson would be at least better than what you're rolling out now? And then if you got someone like Gavrikov and you had a second pair of Gavrikov and Aljo, like I think that third pair is like Ben Sherratt's sweet spot. He doesn't get a lot of time to fuck up. He gets easier assignments and less time to fuck up. And then he gets the opportunity to just go out and bowl people over. That's kind of what you want. And then you've got Gustafsson on that third pair who has offensive talent. And Yzerman even spoke to it that Gustafsson was playing better under McClellan until he got hurt, because we saw how McClellan deployed players better than Newsy deployed players. So I think a third pair, but I think a third pair though, Tyler, of Sherratt, who I think would be more than adequate defensively on a third pair. He's not a first pair guy. He should not touch the first pair. He's okay as a second pair guy. On a third pair, I think that's where he fits perfectly.
It's almost like you're better off. Well, this would be, you'd be banking on this, but it's almost better off buying one of them out, hoping that one of them fits on the third pair, and then hoping that Sandin Pellikka makes the team out of camp, because then you have a puck mover on each D pair.
Yeah, but I think as of right now, with what we heard Yzerman say, I don't think ASP is making, unless he comes into camp and just beats the brakes off of everyone else.
He's got to have a Larkin or Raymond style camp,
which he could.
Sure,
he could,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and he could play 5 games in GR and then be called up.
It also depends on how many preseason games they're actually going to have, and again, and what they're going to see this season.
Yeah.
So I think even if you don't buy out Hull, you could waive him and send him to Grand Rapids, and you would recoup a little less than what you would buying him out, and you wouldn't have to pay anything. It's pretty similar
cost in terms of what you're saving.
You save like $1.5 million.
And guess what? You don't have to pay him $1.1 million next year.
Exactly.
Let him go be the guy in Grand Rapids and whatever.
Meet your veteran quota down there in GR with Justin.
Yeah. One thing I'll just say about Gavrikov, and I was listening to a couple different podcasts, and I think it was Frank Saravalli talking about what Gavrikov is going to be. And it was him and Gregor talking, kind of going back and forth about it. And Frank believes that it's going to be north of $8 million per year for an 8-year deal, or 7-year deal for Gavrikov.
Okay.
Because he is such a defensive defenseman.
Cool.
And
I mean, he's projected to come in right now. I mean, I don't know if they've updated it, but Evolving Hockey has him at 5'6"
for a 5-year deal, right?
4-year.
Yeah.
What is he right now? Is he 30?
29. I don't know what his birthday is though.
Okay.
I mean,
he might be 30. I don't know. I'm looking at my spreadsheet. I don't have actually Evolving up.
For the best defensive defenseman in the league, do it. Sign me up.
I would do it.
You got cap space. Fucking do it. Who cares?
Gavrikov is 29. His birthday is November. He'll be 30 after the turn of the season.
There you go. So just do it. Give him. Well, I see why he's projected to get 5 years now. Take a guy to 35. You're not going to get him all the way to 37, especially for a defenseman that you don't know when the hit is going to start, when he's not an offensive dude. You don't know how long that defensive number is going to keep up, but I'd take him on a 5-year, $7 million deal.
Do with this what you will, but the agent of Gavrikov, Pat Brisson.
Yeah, which has several Red Wings representatives. So
Patrick Kane, Tyler Mott, Dylan Larkin.
Didn't he also play for McClellan Gavrikov?
In LA, yeah.
Yeah. So you got,
unless they didn't overlap, but I believe they did. I believe they did overlap.
Oh, Brisson also had Daniel Sprong. Who else do you have in here that has
he's a big
Red Wings
agent.
ties? I know he's a huge agent, but I'm looking at other guys that he has that were.
Has Larkin always had Pat Brisson?
No, switched over to him before his contract got done.
Okay, that's right. Yeah,
Dylan Larkin.
Oh yeah, he did switch to him. Who else has him? Let's see.
Ryan, you get one more.
Tarasenko.
Oh, okay. Well, Tarasenko's about to be gone. So the next name I want to talk about.
Oh, and ASP.
Jesus, is the exciting one. The Red Wings are somehow linked to a guy who's in rumor mill more than almost any other player now, Elias Pettersson. Elias Pettersson is...
Because he's a Swede.
He is 26 years old. Don't ruin my fun. In 64 games last season, had 15 goals and 30 assists for 45 points. Season before that, though, 82 games played, 34 goals, 55 points for 55 assists for 89 points. Season before that, 80 games played, 39 goals, 63 assists for 102. There was a fight between him and JT Miller. JT Miller ended up getting shipped.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. And then JT Miller gets shipped. Pettersson still seems pissed off. He slumps last season. I feel like, and it's been said by many people, that Vancouver is currently kind of a shit show that is just driving players away. There were exit interviews that alluded to the same thing from players, that it's just something with management or ownership that's just not working with the players that are there. Quinn Hughes, I feel bad for the kid because he's so good and he's in such a shit situation that
I don't here right now.
I would totally be like, hey guys, Quinn looks really sad, although that's just his face normally, but he looks sadder than normal. So like, we'll give you some picks and you can let him go. But
what would you give up for him?
A lot. I would give up a lot. I would give up Axel Sandin Pelican, a couple first round picks at least for Quinn Hughes. Absolutely.
Holy shit.
Ryan, you've got to be kidding me.
For the second best defenseman in the NHL, arguably.
No, not Pettersson, Ryan. Quinn Hughes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Pettersson still.
No. Quinn Hughes.
I was going to say, you crazy, stupid son of a bitch.
ASP and a couple first round picks I would give up for Quinn Hughes.
Fuck it. Send it, yeah.
Yeah.
All day.
But Elias Pettersson last season was, according to Evolving Hockey, 78 overall with an offense of 43 and a defense of 87. That's last season. Still played defensive hockey. Really, really good defensive hockey on a down production year. Over a 3-year sample, he is a 95 overall with an 86 offense, an 88 defense. Way improves your even strength play. You want a guy that's going to improve your even strength play? That's where it is. Honestly, and this is going to get me scorned from some people and get me praise from other people and have other people yell at me, Elias Pettersson would be the 1C in Detroit.
Yes, I agree.
He would be the top line center in Detroit. Dylan Larkin, they'd either move Dylan Larkin to the wing or they would make him 2C. And imagine Dylan Larkin on the wing of Elias Pettersson and Lucas Raymond.
Does that make Marco Kasper expendable?
No, that makes Marco Kasper your 2C between Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane.
If you moved up Larkin, if Larkin and EP were on your wing, yes. Or you have Pettersson on the wing with Larkin and Raymond.
Okay.
Which would actually make the most sense in my opinion. But with that kind of firepower, you just go with what works, and then someone's going to go do something.
Elias Pettersson is better. Dylan Larkin is good defensively. Elias Pettersson is better. And to me, Elias Pettersson's younger. He's 26 right now.
This is a perfect situation, I think, for the Wings, because this is the kind of guy you've been looking for since you drafted Dylan Larkin and started the rebuild. This is the kind of guy that doesn't put you over the top, but offensively, I mean, if he can get to half of that 102-point season or 3/4 of that 102-point season that he had in 22-23 before the contract, I mean, man, that would just be like, that's the kind of move that you look at and then you're like, okay, the Wings are not fucking around anymore. This isn't, the last 8 years of not making the playoffs. This is a team that is expected to compete for the Stanley Cup playoffs. I didn't say the Stanley Cup. They are expected to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs. No questions about it. The expectations on opening night are to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs and at least win a round, I would say, would be that expectation, depending on what you do elsewhere.
The worry in that type of move, though, you're losing a Kasper, potentially. Because you're going to need to give them an NHL player
exactly
that's good, not just a JT Compher or an Andrew Kopp corpse. It's the likelihood of loss there is a Kasper and a prospect
or Danielson.
That's what I'm saying. So if they're trying to rebuild, could you give them a first-round pick?
I don't think
could you give them Danielson, and could you give them someone like Rasmussen right now as a fill-in? Could you give them the pick, the prospect, and the roster player and get something like that done? Because what you're going to tell Vancouver is, hey, I'm going to take on the full $11.6 million of Elias Pettersson's contract. That is what I will do. I will take that on. I won't make you eat anything. I will give you our high center prospect. I will give you 13 overall, and I will give you a roster player. And you're going to give me
through
Pettersson.
2032.
Yep.
I mean, if you're given this year at 13 and next season on top of a Kasper, there's no way that's all that takes. But if that's your first few, and then you can get away with a depth or
I'm talking Danielson. Like, to me right now,
so you're taking Kasper out of it entirely.
Yeah, because to me right now,
I don't
your
think that
center
works.
depth, you don't have the center unless you say, yeah, I'm going to shift Larkin down, but then you still need a top 6 winger in that situation.
Sure, but I don't think a deal like that flies unless it's going to have a Kasper type of, because you're going to need to give them a roster player, but you can't give them someone that's going to be far older than EP unless it's an extra.
That's
body.
why I said you give them the 13 overall, you give them Nate Danielson, you give them Michael Rasmussen, and you say, I'm taking the full $11.6 million. That's what I'm taking.
And if the huge risk,
the huge risk. I almost like the other.
If you can keep Kasper out of all of this, it's a win.
This is where I offset it, Tyler. You say it's a huge risk, but we'll bring it back to the beginning of the show. It's not as big of risk as the Zegras move. You've seen Elias Pettersson be successful for longer stretches of time and then have a down season. And seemingly having a down season around all the turmoil that surrounded the Vancouver organization.
Fairly older.
Exactly. It's not the same situation because I would be over 90% certain that Pettersson's going to bounce back in a different situation. Like, this seems like a good change of scenery kind of guy to go back to what he was. Now, you know what he's been able to do. He's got Bing votes. He's got Selke votes, Hart votes. Like, he won the Calder. Like, this is a guy who can do it. He's proven he can do it. He's Swedish. That's like Red Wing.
And listen to this,
there.
Fellas. Listen to this. He idolized 13 and 40 as a kid.
Oh, of course he did. Of course he did.
Then there's a lot of Pavel Datsyuk in his game at times.
His contract takes him to age 33. I'm sorry, but the cap's going up, and it's likely going up more. They're already stating next season than what they've already assumed it. So guess what? That contract's not going to hurt too much. And they've got a lot of wiggle, and that still gives them more than enough wiggle room to sign other guys like Edmondson and other middle of the road guys that are going to be impactful for this group moving forward. It gives you space to do something with DeBrincat because he's coming up soon. You've got things that you can do. It's not as much as what Marner's going to likely take in. You've got an impactful player. If you can do it and not lose a Casper, it's a win. But I don't know how you really, like, maybe you're seeing 3 firsts in a Nate Danielson. I don't know.
I think that it's the
I'd
kind
rather
of
have
move,
Robertson
though,
at that in that case. If you're giving up 3 first-round picks, I'd rather have Robertson as a player.
It's the price for a high-end center who is young. Like, center is the most expensive position.
Okay, so what's
in
the
hockey.
expectations if Pettersson's in this lineup? Does that mean you go and you get Gavrikov as well, and now you're a pseudo almost Stanley Cup contender overnight?
Absolutely.
Because that's basically what happens, I would think. Maybe it's unrealistic expectations, but at that point, you got to figure out the goaltending situation still. But then you get Gavrikov and you get Pettersson on this team, the expectations go from not the Stanley Cup playoffs, but to having a real Stanley Cup playoff run.
Now, what I will tell you, though, Tyler, is those 2 moves, if you could do both those things, if you do one thing, if you could do Pettersson and you could get a D-man that's not Gavrikov, but shore up the defense a bit. If you could do those 2 things, sure. That gets the entire fan base off Steve Yzerman's back immediately.
I agree.
Because now it's on the players, not the management. Yeah.
So I'm going to get you guys' final thoughts before we sign off tonight. And I'm going to start with Tyler, since he appeared in 2 episodes in a row, which is like a round of applause for that, because that's impressive.
I'll give myself a pat on. No, I'm kidding. Final thoughts. Well, we're back to this point where it's nut up or shut up for the Wings here. This week is going to be super important. I would think something's going to go down between now and Friday, whether it's the Wings or in the NHL in general. I would say the Wings probably make something happen before Friday. Again, I don't want to put expectations like at the highest they've ever been, but something's got to happen. There's way too much things that are going on. The goaltending situation needs to get figured out. They still need to add on defense. They need to add a winger as well. So expect it to be busy. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Already Ryan 33. It's hot.
That's it, Ryan.
Yeah, that's it.
You can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You can follow the Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. Sub to us over on YouTube at Grindline Pod and turn on those notifications. You'll be notified every time an episode goes live. This is the time of year where I have to record amendment episodes and post them to YouTube, because we drop episodes and then 20 minutes later, Steve Yzerman does something. So that is, I'm expecting at 3:05 a.m. for my phone to get an alert saying Yzerman has made a trade, because he works under cover of darkness, kind of like some weird vampire. We like to thank the Hockey Podcast Network for hosting us and spreading us around. Vintage Detroit, which is the only place you should get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on, and where we have an exclusive t-shirt collection. So if you go to their website, click the Keep It Local tab, click the Grindline Podcast, you will find all of our designs there. Helps us keep the lights on and supports the show. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Ryan and Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockey Town.